Okay, we are up to the top of page Kuf Yud Ches V'hinei. We discussed over the last few shiurim, we discussed the mindset of anava, right? A mindset of not getting caught up in the horrific trap of gaiva. Even though we also discussed Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam, but we recognize that is not a contradiction to anava, to recognize the unbelievable gifts and responsibility that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. And even to feel a certain joy and even confidence from the confidence that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in us, that is not a chisaron in gaiva. A chisaron of gaiva would be to consider it to be my midah, which makes me better than you. But now that we discussed the mindset of anava, now we're going to discuss how to act like an anav. Now let's remember, very, very important. Let's remember that the Mesilas Yesharim taught us that you cannot act like an anav if you're not an anav. When someone who's not an anav acts like an anav, that's gaiva. Okay? So sometimes you can have someone and you rush to open the door for them, and if they go, no, it's okay, that could be gaiva. If they'll just walk through the stupid door, excuse my language, and let's move on, that would be the humblest thing to do. So it's a delicate balance. Okay? You have to be careful about acting like an anav. But he's going to talk about ways of acting like an anav, some of which we can do. Because some of the humble ways of acting are not just humble, but they are normal and healthy and appropriate. So we're going to see, maybe we'll point out if there's ever something that we feel like, no, this is not the right thing if we're not up to there. But now the Mesilas Yesharim is going to focus on actions of anava that are not like that guy by the door, but actions in terms of the way we interact with each other, that we interact with each other. There's a healthy humility that we have when we interact with each other. Let's see. V'hinei, dibarnu adheino, we spoke until now, me'anvas hamachshava, from the humility of thought. Now we're going to talk about being an anav practically, with the clarity that the Ramchal always brings to the table. He says there are 4 elements of acting appropriately in a humble way. To number 1 is for a person to act within himself with a certain lowness. I didn't say lowliness, but a lowness, meaning humility. Bisvayil ha'elbainais, in the kayach that a person can develop to be able to absorb, to be able to take insults, a healthy approach, which is something we're going to have to think about because we're very sensitive. Have a healthy approach to insults. Bisnoi harabanos, in rejecting and hating titles and rabbanim. When it says rabbanis, it doesn't just mean rabbanim. By the way, it doesn't say b'snai rabbanim. Okay, please love rabbanim. It's b'snai rabbanos. It's to hate the rabbanos. Even a rav has to hate the rabbanos. Okay, I have a messiah from a very, very, very chashuv, older rav who's still alive, but he's from like a previous generation. And he said that being soinei as rabbanos means that you absolutely don't need it. No, you absolutely don't need it. And that part of it is the pomp and circumstance, like they say, of a role. That's not what you see in the role. And and I know many rabbanim, Baruch Hashem, I know the Klal Yisrael is blessed with rabbanim, that all this public stuff and people standing up for them or calling them up to a chuppah is like, it just gets in the way of their avodah. When they sit with the Talmud late at night and talk to him about how to be successful in getting engaged, then they go to sleep at night feeling, that's why I became a rav, to be able to have that to be able to be part of someone's life, to be able to give to someone, and that's where it comes from. So B'snayos or Rabbanis doesn't mean not to do the job of leadership. It means not to need the job, not to be connected with it. And then finally, ubayreach min hakavod, the midah of running away from honor. Sometimes it's appropriate, as we said. Sometimes the humble thing is just to accept the honor. Could you imagine if Rabbi Tenenbaum was by a chuppah, there were 300 people there, and they said, "Mechubed with the next bracha, Rabbi Ephraim Tenenbaum," and Rabbi Tenenbaum got up and said, "No, I don't deserve it. Call someone else." Is that humility or gaiva? That's gaiva. Baruch Hashem, he would never do that, and he would just quickly go up, do his bracha, and quickly go down, and that's all. Right? But by reach min hakavod, there are ways of running away from kavod, of trying to make sure that the spotlight doesn't swing to you, and that's a mila. We'll see.
Bro.
Oh, I'm sorry. He puts these two together. Actually, I counted wrong. Bisnoi harabanos uberech min hakavod actually makes sense. Rejecting the role of rabbanos and running away from kavod, that's one thing, like avoiding kavod. And then the fourth thing is b'chaloi kavod lakol. What a deep thing. A true anav is not just someone who doesn't demand respect. A true anav is someone who respects others, who treats others with respect. Okay?
Is there like a specific way we're supposed to give kavod so that they don't have to do this dance, or is the part of it the dance?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see what you mean by the dance, but let's really keep the question in mind.
Us giving kavod and the Rebbeim, dancing around the kavod.
The job of a Talmud is to give kavod, because when he gives kavod, he's giving kavod to the Torah and kavod to Hashem. The pasuk says, "Es Hashem Elokecha Tira." You should have honor for Hashem. Or from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Chazal say, Es l'rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. So, we give kavod, and how the Talmidei Chachamim deal with that kavod, that's their job. That's their job to figure out. It's fascinating that I want to define kavod for you, okay? I want to define kavod, because just saying honor doesn't fully define kavod. You can honor anything, okay? The definition of kavod is, and you're going to love this definition. You ready? Definition of kavod is an outward expression of an inner value. That's kavod. And our job is to show outward expressions when we have something of an inner value. And that's why people that genuinely have that value, kavod is they attract kavod. And their job is so fascinating. Their job is to reject that kavod, because then they're valuing something external. And that's the opposite of kavod. Because the whole inyan of kavod is an internal value. So if you honoring me is the most important thing to me, you're not going to honor me anymore. You know why? Because then I'm going to be a person that needs the external kavod. Then we're no longer having an outward expression of an inner value. Did I just make sense? Okay? Interesting, right? Okay, let's do a little bit. Ha'echad, the first one. Behisnaheg b'shiflos, acting in a humble way. V'zeh roi sheyiyeh, this is something that's befitting in different areas of a person's hanhaga. B'diburai, in the way a person speaks. B'halichasai, in the way a person walks. B'shivtai, in the way a person sits. U'b'chol tenu oisav, and in all of the movements of a person. You can tell the movements of a balgaiva. Body language is a real thing. Okay? I was at a meeting last night, and there was 2 people there speaking to 4 rabbanim. And the rabbanim met before to plan the meeting, and then the 2 people came in, and the plan was to strongly advise that these 2 people do not do what they wanted to do. And when the Rav there said to the person, I strongly advise you not to do that, I don't know if anyone else in the room realized, but I realized that the first thing the person did was this. That's a movement. I feel bad for people listening to the recording. It's not coming with a video. But he folded his arms. And when a person does that, they are, in a certain sense, boosting themselves up and protecting themselves. They're standing strong. I even have a trick that because they say that not only is someone who's being defiant someone who will fold their arms in a certain way, but folding your arms puts a little defiance in you. So, fold your arms. Okay? You hold this for a second. Okay, now I'm going to speak to you. Okay? They say that salesmen keep this in mind when they go to someone's house to sell something and the person's like, not interested. He says, oh, could you just hold this for a second? They want to get the person to open up, to make themselves vulnerable. Amazing, no? Okay? So it's a very big deal. You can tell people's body. I could tell in sheer, I can tell moods, interest, by body language. I'm sorry, but I can tell. What? Sometimes that's the case. That's why you have to look at all things. Like if a guy's like this, it's different than when a guy's like this. You have to know. You have to be able to put all the pieces together, and it's something if you're sensitive to, you can learn over time. There's a difference between how you sit. Eli is sitting, I'll just tell you, like someone who's interested in what I'm saying. So thank you for that. Okay, he's sitting in a way. He's sitting up. He's comfortable. So like he's not feeling stressed. He's not anxious about it, and he's pleasant, and he's not like looking around. His head is not rolling around. He's not on his phone. He's not like shifting. You know, you ever see in a speech that after about 20 minutes you start hearing the cheers? Okay? And when I'm speaking, when I start hearing the cheers, I'm like, oh boy, better wrap up. Okay? It's amazing. So you could see that. Okay? Problem is that when I speak about this, guys have a really hard time because they're like, I don't know what to do with myself now. What do you think? What does this mean? You know, like it's okay, you can do it. It makes people uncomfortable, but the truth is that it does say a lot about you in the way that you place your body.
I was always taught that the way that you position your body affects how you interact with the world, and that if you are slouched during classes, then your body will say, okay, we're relaxed, we're not taking anything in.
Right. That's true. It goes both ways. It goes both ways. If you sit up and look interested, you're more likely to be interested. If you're interested, you'll sit up and look interested. It goes both ways. It's very interesting, right? But it goes both ways. And it's true with a lot of things. Like sometimes when people are talking about themselves to me, I could tell from their body language if they're being hard on themselves. I once talked to someone who was talking about, Lamais, I'm trying to grow little by little. I'm trying to grow. This action was not little by little. I'm being gentle with myself. Okay, this was I'm punching myself in the nose. Okay, you know. But you can tell sometimes from people's body language where they're up to. It's very interesting. And humility is something that there are ways that we act that broadcast humility. And again, as much as the Mesilas Yesharim taught us that acting like the famous Anav might not be such a good idea, but there are subtle acts of humility that are shaykh to us, like we'll see, to speak softly and respectfully, not to take up too much space, like to these type of things that are very, very important. Okay, let's stop here for today.